Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have on Wino. How you doing today, man?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm very pleased to have you on. This is excellent. I've been a fan forever of your billion bands that you're in. I mean, this is you've had a lot of
Well, it's kind of
projects,
it's kind of it's kind of slimmed down to just me playing acoustic and the obsessed, basically.
which is still enough. I mean, it's and your project also. Are you still going to do stuff with Connie?
If and when I get back to Europe or we get Connie over here, I still love to play with him. I
Ah,
mean, we
you guys
never
are
did
so
really
good.
get to tour. We never did really get to tour with Freedom Conspiracy properly, but all that stuff is on a German label,
Hmm.
and what's going on over there now. It might be a little bit tricky, but we'll see if things blow over.
Okay.
I'd love to play with him again. I mean, he's fantastic.
You guys, but separate. I love it because, and the people who are watching, if you're not aware, I'll make a list. We'll put the post, the links for everybody to follow this. But this is a project that you were probably touring as just solo, acoustically, and you met up with him touring together, I believe, right? And
Yep,
then you guys did an album together,
yep.
which is fantastic because he has his own darker style, and then you have your own really gritty, earthy acoustic style, but it's very beautiful too.
Thank
It's
you.
it's it's like a flash to blade. It's sharp, but it's pretty. I don't know the right words for it. Maybe you can explain your better.
My last acoustic record, Forever Gone, actually did the best and got the best reviews of any record I've pretty much done. But I think because I think it's still pretty heavy. It's pretty personal, but I think that I think it's heavy in the way that some acoustic can be. It's like I've always been a fan of Neil Young,
Hmm.
Carl Sebastian Young. I got into Towns Van Zandt a little bit later than most, and like you have to weed through that stuff to find it.
Yes.
But some of that stuff is pretty cool. I mean, I've always been drawn to like the more melancholy, minor or more melancholy sounding music as a rule. So with acoustic, is no different really. But Connie got into his dark folk thing after we'd worked together. Like we did two records. We did Heavy Kingdom and we did Freedom Conspiracy. And like I said, we never really got a chance to tour very much for Freedom Conspiracy. It's on Exile on Exile on Mainstream.
A tongue twister.
German label, yeah. And that guy's been Andreas has been really cool. He brought over Spirit Caravan in the day and did a lot of cool stuff.
What's really great is, so you talk about your sound, and first I'll actually step back. Heavy to me can be anything. It doesn't have to be like acoustic can be heavy. Like anything can be heavy. Heavy is a feeling of the
Yes.
song, of the emotion. It doesn't have to be the words or the sound, but it's still heavy, and you know it when you know it,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Right.
there. You, you
It
can't
is a
try to be
feeling.
heavy.
It is a feeling. I mean, it's like a visceral thing. It's like you feel it in your gut. Yeah. I think it's all about passion and you know, uh music is like emotion's companion.
So going over this, I was going back and like listening to like through my life. I've always listened to all your music, but like I was listening to like different albums and different things you've done. And what's really neat is you pick like say your solo acoustic, and then you pick your Spirit Caravan and say Obsessed, and then Saint Vitus. The four of them, they all have you have a common like a footprint or blueprint of your sound, but they're all very different on some level. From the outside, that might be like, oh yeah, it's whatever. I mean, it's very easy to categorize somebody, but like Spirit Caravan is very much kind of a psychedelic, emotional, very uplifting, where
Yeah.
Vitus is more of a heavier, doomier, and then you know, then your soul stuff is acoustic is more yeah, it's more visceral. It's like an obsessed is just grinding. It's like they're all very different sounds.
Well, St. Vitus, we'll talk about St. Vitus. St.
Yeah.
Vitus is the brainchild and the baby of Dave Chandler. I mean, I was just basically the singer and the frontman for that band because I wrote very little in the band. I mean, I wrote lyrics to, I wrote and played guitar on a few things, and I actually played guitar live in the band on our very first tour, which I believe was '87 or '88 when we first went over. We actually had two guitars in the band. But as far as my writing contributions go, I mean, I didn't write Born Too Late. I didn't write Dying Inside. I wrote a couple other ones that, I wrote some stuff on Lily, and I wrote some stuff off More for Cries, and played on More for Cries too. But as a rule, generally that was pretty much David's baby. So that's why that I opted out, or I quit St. Vitus, some years ago before Children of Doom came out, because I didn't like the music. If he's gonna hand me the music and hand me the lyrics, I gotta be into it. It's like I could identify with Modulate. I could totally identify with Dying Inside. I could totally identify with everything that I sang in St. Vitus. I could identify with, and I had to identify with that, or I wouldn't have done it. I mean, you don't really, as a rule, in life. I mean, you're not really, going to do something you don't like unless absolutely, unless you have to for work or tyrannical boss or whatever. But as far as music goes, I mean, I have to be into it. The thing about St. Vitus is, St. Vitus music is raw, it's bleak, and it's primitive. And so during my tenure in St. Vitus, I'm not in St. Vitus anymore, not by my own hand, but because of David's wishes. But I had to get pretty fucked up to be able to get my head in the game, because hanging around those cats, was pretty dour. Like, right before we played, I called it dour hour. Sometimes I couldn't even be even in the room sometimes with those cats because we're so dour. But it's like meaning basically the original duo, which is Mark and David. But I really like that band, and I really enjoyed just being a frontman. The two guitar thing went its way when a wayward fan, U.S. fan, who had absolutely no tact at all. You have to understand, there was always a little bit of professional jealousy on David's part from the very minute I joined the band, because I was a guitar player and because people would talk about my guitar playing and stuff. And so when I joined St. Vitus as a singer, the bass player wanted to keep me as a guitar player, wanted to incorporate that. And it was sort of like David kind of fought that in a way, because David had a hard time realizing that I was on his team.
Right.
I mean, he let stuff get in the way, emotional stuff and psychological stuff get in the way of him realizing that I was on his team. The whole time I was on his team, I was also his secret tech. Like, we're standing out in front of like 4,000 people, and he's going, tink, tink, no sound. I'm the front man, I'm loose. So I look behind his amp, since I know I'm pretty much of a gearhead too. So like, I look behind his head, I can see speaker cable hanging out, that kind of thing, And so like, I was his secret tech too. And I took pride in that, and he finally realized that. And we finally started to bond on that, not until my very last tour with St. Vitus. Actually, the tour where I got popped in Norway. But and that sort of ended it all, because after that, he's just too paranoid. I don't know. He thinks I'm too much of a loose cannon to tour with. But I mean,
is that because of music or just because of your past history and struggles? Well, actually, I want to say though, could I just say your sound though? Like, I got into St. Vitus when you started. I knew of St. Vitus, but when you came into it is when you just being into it, maybe it was enough to put your own stamp onto it, that put a sound into it. Because that's when I was like, oh, my buddy's like, oh, check this out. I'm like, yeah, I know St. Vitus, but he's like, no. And it's like, oh, it's
my phrasing is different.
New.
Yeah, my phrasing is different and more traditional as far as like Ozzy or a singer goes. Whereas, the original singer, Scotty Riegers, I mean, I love him, but he's got this weird kind of operatic kind of style. To be honest with you, that I found hard to digest. I mean, a lot of people like that. I mean, a lot of people, especially in Europe, are purists. And, the original Vitus, blah, blah, blah. But then a lot of people also are like, they miss my vocals. All I can say is I learned a lot in St. Vitus, and we did have a sound. And like David, he continued on, the Sabbath-y kind of style of like, more of a visceral kind of guitar sound. With Spirit Caravan, that was a period in my life when I made some really positive life decisions. I became completely sober. I had children. I mean, it definitely was like sort of, in my opinion, like sort of the golden years as far as like, I think my playing was maybe if not at its peak, but my playing, I think, was some of the best I've ever done. And then I think that my playing really reached not necessarily its peak, because I think I think I really hit a personal mark with the Hidden Hand there. With the Hidden Hand, I'd never taken politics into consideration. into the music. I always felt like it was kind of a crush, But I must say, around this time when they're beating the drums for wars in Afghanistan and all this crazy stuff, I decided to just kind of let it hang out a little bit, And since then, so much has changed. Even, I mean, the left is the new right, blah blah blah. The gray is the new
It's a
blue.
mess for
Blah, blah.
everybody. It's like literally just stepping into a puddle, no matter what you do.
I
It's
know
really,
it's confusion, but it's designed that way. And this brings you to like, okay, so the new in February, this February 2021, or no, 2022. I'm sorry. We will be going into the studio to record the next Obsessed record, and it's going to be called "Designed to Divide."
nice.
Yeah, so
I
I mean,
clearly
we're going
see.
to let it all hang out. I think it's going to be the heaviest. The material so far seems to be it's going to be the heaviest record yet that I've done, and I'm going to incorporate all elements. I'm going to play acoustic guitar. It's going to be electric guitar, but it's going to be hopefully, a good blueprint of what we're all about.
So actually, so acoustic too. You're gonna implement that into the pattern, or just layer it?
Later, yeah,
Okay, a little
yeah.
different. Well, you aren't slowing down. I mean, the last album is heavy. I mean, you guys, and it's hard because I can't say like that's your golden period for songs because you write so many different type of songs. I mean, these
Yeah,
acoustic songs are so bare. I mean, that's usually the test of a song, an
right,
acoustic
right.
guitar or an
Yeah,
electric guitar. Like it's
very
literally that's
true.
it.
It's very true. Very true.
So your songwriting, is still growing. This last album you just did is really just powerful. It's really I love it. Um, it's hard because like you do have an album. You have a band for different moods. Is what you do.
Right. But I mean, like, the personalities have gotten in the way. And unfortunately, every band that I've been in from, the early lineup of the Obsessed, Hidden Hand, Spirit Caravan, everything, I've always thought that, I've always looked upon that band as being, hey, this is it. This is my vehicle. It's my license to fly. And one way or another, weirdo, personality conflicts have crept in. A lot of it has to do with touring because, even when I was married and had, I still have kids, obviously, but when I was married and had duties, stay-at-home dad duties, I still managed to tour because I believed you got to take the music to the people. And traditionally, that really is the way you sell records. Like traditionally, before the internet or whatever, touring is what brought you to the people.
Yeah,
That's what brought the people to buy your record.
yeah. It took
There's a
three
lot of
albums
things.
to break you, or four albums to break you. Nowadays, if you don't have a single, you're gone.
Right, exactly. And I mean, with the digital realm and everything, like so many things have changed. So I mean, I personally, I think the modern artists these days have a little bit more of a chance than we did in the past because the litmus test for success in the '90s was Beavis and Butthead. Okay, Street Side made it right, and then one dude goes, one of the two, I can't remember, goes, these guys look old, and that was it,
Yep.
pretty much. I mean, I know it's hard to swallow, but that was pretty much the make or break test back in those days. You get on whatever that show was, called that they were on. Oh man, I can't think of it right now. MTV's,
Yep.
they,
It was actually just Beavis and Butthead, and then they had that, and they had a bunch of other shows. I mean,
whatever the metal show was called. I mean, Shrine Builder did it too, like later on with Jamie Josta, which was cool. But I mean, I'm really happy that bands like Shrine Builder or the Hidden Hand or Spirit Caravan, get a little bit of attention because I think it's important. I think Shrine Builder was a fantastic, band. I mean, it really had high hopes for that band also, but I've always been the black sheep, man. I shoot from the hip,
well, I think so. As part of, I mean, I know touring is a nightmare. It's notorious for destroying
Yeah.
relationships and people. So if you're 1 degree off from a personality, it's going to be a challenge.
Oh yeah. People
And
show the true colors on tour. That's for sure.
I know people like I couldn't drive across town without pulling the car over. So I couldn't be in a bus with somebody. And then you got to be creative. It's like the 4-way marriage or the 5-way marriage, or you trio. You're usually a power trio type of guy, so it's your 3-way.
That makes it a little bit easier,
You think so, but or you get but then you get the thing, you get one guy out, right? You're the one with the strong
Well,
opinion, and then
that's right. There you go. You can't have you still can have a majority.
right. You're still going to lose because if you're that one guy, you're the he's a troublemaker. Then you feel like you're on the outs even more instead of having 4 guys.
Absolutely. And there's something to be said for a power trio, but there's also something to be said for two guitars. Like if you can be in a two guitar band where both guitarists their egos are away, where they're not just concerned about themselves, and they want to be team players, and they're mature enough to be in tune and balanced and volume wise, then you've got the recipe for a really great band. I mean, my two guitar experiences have been pretty good with Premonition 13 and with Shrine Builder. And I'm gonna have to say that when you're in a situation with two guitars where one guy is always turning up because his ego is just getting a hold of him psychologically, it's like that. It's not going to work. Jesus Priest was a good example of a band that really blew my mind with two guitars in the early days.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
They, Maiden the same way. I think a lot of teamwork. So much teamwork. They have 3 guitar players now. I mean, there's room for everybody.
Yeah, and we toured with Paul Bearer, and Paul Bearer had 3 guitars, and they were getting ready to go and record with Vitus. They supported Vitus, and they were getting ready to go record with Billy Anderson, who I think was fantastic. He did deep stuff, high fire, and they were asking me some questions about recording, and the only advice I told them was, listen, everything has its sonic place, in the RAM. Like if the kick drum is putting off the same frequencies as one of the guitars tuned down to C or whatever it might be, then you're going to start to have interference, So I think everything has its sonic place. So the frequency should be a little bit different. Like, the bass and the kick drum shouldn't sound, if all the guitars sound exactly the same frequencies, then you're going to end up with like a wall of mud that will be hard to discern in the mix. But, come on, this is like modern days. I mean, those kind of concerns are pretty much out the window. It's like, what the end product sounds like is what the end product sounds like.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Like some of the best bands, you can tell just by like saying an interview when they're talking about the guitar players will be like, "Yeah, I joined this band," but they're like, "Didn't you used to play like a Les Paul?" You're like, "Yeah, but I switched to this because so and so plays a Les Paul, and his sound is right here in this pocket, and I'm not going to compete with him. I want to be a part of it." And that's how you know right there that band is going to be okay because the guitarists are like working on building something,
He's conscientious. He's conscientious of the sound, and he's conscientious of what he needs to do to make it better. And I think that's nothing. That's all good. I mean, that shows
a lot of guitarists have done it. I don't want to mention names, but I mean, some of the better bands have done that. You can hear it in these 2 guitarists. They talk about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I was always told by my dude that a Les Paul and a Strat panned right, panned left and right is an incredible combination, and it is. Leonard Skinner is a good example of that, or the Outlaws to some extent. I can't really right now. I can't really think too many other rock bands, but they exist, and so yeah, I agree.
You should play Strat, huh? I don't think I've ever seen you with Strat.
I have a Franken Strat, which is like an old Strat body with a modern neck, and I have some pretty hot pickups in there. It's pretty cool. I played it in Hidden Hand and Shrine Builder a little bit, and the Obsessed also like Maryland Doomfest. I used to do it because it's a great down tuning guitar for some reason. For some reason, I can tune the guitar down and leave it in drop like all the way down. I mean, I never tune my whole guitar down.
Right.
I do like a kind of a Victor Griffin style drop. When I first saw Victor in Death Row / Pentagram, he was the first person that I ever saw who he tuned his guitar a certain way. He would just drop his low string. Okay. Really? He would drop his low string to B, which I thought was fantastic. So then I asked him, hey, can I use this tuning? He said, yeah. Then I wrote Hiding Mask, Climate of Despair, Sodden Jackal, and B. And then I discovered myself I could go even lower and go down to A. And then I wrote Lost Sundance and some stuff the Hidden Hand did, etc. And like actually the new Obsessed record is going to have quite a few songs in that tuning. But I start with that tuning by tuning my whole guitar a half step down to start with. So going to A would actually be a half step beyond the G sharp, etc.
So while we're at talking, what are you using for strings? What are your gauges?
I use Ernie Ball. I mean, no, I'm sorry. I use D-Daria. Yes, D-Daria strings, and I get a 7-string set, so it goes 59, 46, 36, and then I've got a radical jump that goes like 17, 11, 17, 13, 10.
Wow!
And because I play lead, I got to be able to bend.
Well, that's why I asked, because you're so heavy, but then you're so soft. Yeah, I just did almost all my guitars with D'Addario right now, and I've got all different settings. I couldn't even tell you top of my head because I'm always playing with the gauges and the sounds. And
you have to. What I've learned just recently is that you can't not put the heavy gauge strings. you can't put my gauge strings I like to use on some guitars on every guitar. It'll just fuck it up. Yeah.
I put some on, and it was like the heavy ones, and like this is the best one, and some guy that one of the guitar places recommended. I'm like, all right, I'll try it. Man, it's like the best expensive. I put them on, and I was like, what is this garbage on this guitar? It is the worst sound. And I've heard people swear by it. Like it's just like it depends on the guitar. It just
Depends on the guitar. All
literally
the way.
different guitar. It's like the same style guitar, just a different
Yeah,
guitar.
that's right. Like this K Archtop, rocks.
Hold up and show it to the audience. It's beautiful. Yeah, there we go. Look at that.
This guy, he painted the image of a naked woman on there. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's like, it's basically like breasts. She's kind of like a sideways twist.
Okay.
Yeah. But on this guitar, and then I put in, my favorite thing to do with acoustic guitars is I'll find like a Teisco electric, like a cheap Teisco electric that has a brutal sounding, imitation Diarmond pickup in there.
Okay.
And, maybe even a real one if it's the 70s. And I'll take it out and I'll install electric guitar pickup in there, and that heats it up substantially.
This
has got a pretty nice install. Got a small, and also my boy, the drummer for the Obsessed, Brad Dog, he makes glass pickguards, right? Okay, and the glass pickguards, they're attached with a tiny grommet underneath it, so that it actually holds it above the face of the guitar about the width of a credit card. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it enhances the sound. Plus, they look real cool. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it has a glass pickguard.
Yeah. Is he selling those or just making them on the side or what?
He started making them on the side, and then we consulted about it and do any color you want. Like he's a stained glass guy.
I might have to talk to you after the show. We might have to get me.
If you give me measurements of pickguard or something you'd like,
yeah.
Then man, I'll definitely have him send you a prototype or something for sure.
Yeah. I'm always looking for a different sound. And so is that the guitar you've been using on your acoustic ones lately?
No, this guitar I got on the last tour, actually, it belonged to me and I had it painted a long time ago, but it didn't come back to me until recently. So I got this guitar and I gave it up to be painted about 10 years ago. And I got it back painted about 7 years ago. And then I gave it to another dude to rework, and he reworked it, had somebody go through it because it doesn't have a truss rod. So the neck had to be reset, sort of like some Martins,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's a weird thing, some Martins, older Martins, 70s Martins, they don't have a truss rod. So you have to have the neck actually physically taken off and reset. But that's pretty common. I didn't realize that. It's pretty common. It's also a pain in the ass and expensive. But yeah, Roxanne is pretty new. But my acoustic stuff I usually did with Old Girl, which is my 59K, and different Gibsons. I have got a J35 also reissue, and I've got then I also played a Southern Jumbo.
I love the sound that you're getting off your acoustics on those solo albums, especially this last one. As a point of reference, it's bright, it's clean, but it's got depth to it.
You got depth, and a lot of that has to do with the recording technique and Frank Marchand. He's like the same engineer who we recorded Sacred with. He did the acoustic record, and I think he's got an amazing ear.
He does a great job with your voice too. I mean, your voice is your voice, but I'm saying, but it feels like the sound. I like your voice obviously, but it sounds like just the acoustic guitar. It feels like you're like 2 feet from me. Like it's like it envelops you. You know what I mean? It's really good production for that, especially for that album, because you're right there. It's very personal, which might add to making it very heavy.
Very personal, and like that microphone is that's like a $10,000 microphone singing into.
Really? What is it?
That's like one of the original propaganda, like Sennheisers or some shit.
Oh, one of those.
It's really a super old German mic, and really well made. I mean, literally, it's a $10,000 mic.
It's worth every penny because it sounds fantastic.
Yep.
That's one of the things
Usually when I'm doing vocals, I usually have, I'm in a booth, isolation booth, and I've got my headphones on, and I can control the mix. I can control the level of the guitars, bass, and drums. But I also get him to send me. He can put a little bit of effect on the vocals and send it back to me, so that when I'm singing, I have a little bit of reverb or a tiny bit of delay, just to kind of sweeten it in the headphones, which is kind of nice because it allows you to. It's not so harsh and raw, So it allows me to. I don't know. I think it improves things.
It is, but you you have a good voice, and it's a strong voice where it doesn't have to be prettied up. It doesn't have to be. It's just
This
beauty and
isn't
the
going to
rawness of
taste.
it.
This is just for me personally.
Right,
And
I'm saying
I
because there's a beauty to
yeah.
the rawness of your voice, though,
Oh, yeah.
where it can be like heavy and pretty. That's what kind of saying is like a weird balance, and I'm lacking for the proper words for it. But that's when you hear it, you know it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and you bring that on and off. You want emphasis by makes it a little bit hard. Like I can almost say like showing your teeth a little bit on some stuff, and getting closer and getting farther away. That's all kind of like it's kind of like something you learn. I mean, that's like an art. I mean, I'm really glad. One thing I'm really happy about is I'm happy that St. Vitus ended up with me just being the lead singer because without having a guitar to hide behind and stuff, I really learned how to sing. I think really learned how to sing from the diaphragm and not from the throat.
It's weird that you didn't do any lyrics, so like you really have much control. It's
I did
always
some
weird.
lyrics.
I
I did
know,
some
but
lyrics.
you know what I'm saying. But like some singers like really control because they're your words. It's like telling the guitar player to what solo play. Like it's like yeah, I can play some songs, but really, it's kind of what I do. I'm a guitar player.
I started to tell the story, but I think I lost what happened with St. Vitus. Why I don't play guitar. It's pretty irrelevant, man. Really, the bottom line is is I really learned how to sing. I think I'm
Yeah,
grateful for
well,
that.
yeah, we don't need to beat a dead horse or a dead war horse. A little obsessed joke there for you. But you know, you're the question is so like with all these things when you're writing, so like you spare caving and then our play skull, hidden hand, and trying to like all this different stuff you're doing. Are you writing songs, going this will be solo, this could be a good obsessed song, like how are you balancing? Plus you're doing art. We're gonna talk about art after too.
That's a
You're doing
great question.
a lot of different things. Like how are you?
That's a really great question. Like, okay, for example, you know, for the sacred record, there was a couple things that I had written specifically for acoustic. And one day I woke up and I said, why am I compartmentalizing this stuff? Because the Obsessed really is an all-encompassing band. I mean, you can call it the Obsessed a doom band, I call it a hope band, but whatever you call it, the music is music and it's diverse. And so, like Stranger Things, for example, off Sacred, that was going to be an acoustic song and tuned down and everything, but it turned out to be a fantastic electric song. I decided to break the barrier there. But yeah, there are some songs that are definitely hardcore acoustic. I would think like I've got a new song called Noble Man, and I'm actually going through some thoughts right now whether I'm going to put it on the new Obsessed record or not, because it really is an acoustic song, and I will probably leave that acoustic song. Where there's another one
Oh, you
though.
should do it. Take that left turn. Take that left turn. You're an artist. Take that left turn.
I can,
Do it.
I
Do
can.
it. Do it.
Yeah.
I would totally do it. That's the whole point of what you do. You know
What
what I
that
mean?
means though, is that the next acoustic record will be longer in coming out.
You're gonna do what you're gonna do. Because what'll
Right,
happen is it's gonna force you to take another turn.
right.
Just like one of the things I'm saying is like with you can take these left turns like it'll force you because like you said you didn't play guitar and you sang in St. Vitus, right? It'll force you to sing differently. So put an acoustic on this other album or whatever, and they'll be like, you can't do that. And you're like, I can do whatever I want on Wino. You see the life I've lived.
Right. And I'm definitely all the way about that mindset, all the way.
There are no rules now. That's the whole point. You don't have the record companies, I call them banks anymore.
Right.
You do what you do, and then
Yeah,
it's just gonna chart a course.
right. But I mean, it would be all about like, will it work?
Well, that's yeah.
Yeah.
You got as long as you're working with the music, you feel it works. I mean, I'm not worried about the music purists. It's more about because it's all about you as an artist, what you're gonna do, what you want
Yeah.
to do, and then
Right.
things like afterwards is the bonus on the cake or something. But it's not. You got to look at it afterwards and go like, yeah, that album 3 years ago. I wish I didn't, or I wish I did. That album, could have been this, or
Yeah.
it's your
I mean,
legacy when you're gone.
I mean, as an artist, if you're ever completely satisfied with something, then something's wrong. I think. But I mean, but as far as production and stuff goes, I mean, I will never let anything go out that I do that I feel is produced so far. I mean, I just won't happen. And that goes for demoing too. Like, I'm not really a big demo guy. Like, why demo everything out in the studio if you can just go into the studio and record it? You know what I mean? And I've been lucky that way because a lot of the people that have been in the labels I've been involved with in the past believe in me, so they don't ask me for a demo. So I
Not a
think
lot of
that's
people can do that though, too. Though you got to be, let's be honest. Some people need
that.
demo. Some people need the demo. They need to
People need
flesh it out.
demo. Yeah, sometimes we need demo to have something to listen to critique.
Right.
And we also we do. That's what rough mixes are for us.
Well, it's different for me because some people, some of the biggest bands, they pain over writing, 8 songs for an album, where some people are just writing them and writing them and writing them. It just
Yeah.
depends.
It really
Um,
depends. Me personally, it depends on my state of mind. It's like I go through periods where I feel like I'm in a rut, but sooner or later I get the divine inspiration because I'm always playing. I'm always playing. That's all I want to do is play guitar. Really, that's all I've ever wanted to do.
are
And
you playing? Are you? I'm sorry. Are you practicing it ever though? Are you like practicing any kind of like little style once in a while, or just riffing it, or
I
just always
practice
just?
all the time, all the time, all the time. I practice all the time. I practice with first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. I get a cup of coffee. I usually do a tarot thing, and then I play guitar. And then
That's
when it's time to do something else, and I do something else, and I'm always being pulled back to guitar. It's like I got my rig set up in the living room, got a stereo rig set up there, so I can stand up and I can hear two different amps. I love pedals and I love sound, and so I'm always experimenting.
I'm the same way. I got like got guitars hanging in my room. I got them everywhere. You get an idea. I'm not a known player or anything, but it's like it's not about that. It's about how good you feel when you play it. Feels right.
That's right. That's right.
You are in that moment. It's nothing else with you and the guitar. No matter how
That's
good
right.
you
And when
are.
it comes to listening to music too, like I'm a big vintage audio dude. Like I love Marantz. I've got an old Pioneer. I've got a couple big old Fisher speakers, and like I saw some Fisher speakers down the street in this vintage store that I'm definitely going to be sniffing out that I've never even seen before. They're either 15s or 18s
Oh
in
wow,
stereo speakers. Fisher was really all about low end, man.
they were.
And, yeah. So that's cool. I mean, I gotta have that, man. Like my old lady will tell you, it's like, like I'll spend hours, hours setting things up and dialing it in to where it's like, man, it's just, yeah.
I'm the same way. I love my record player, and I think I have Bose, but I think the speakers are still like 25, 30 years old. I like the older sounds.
Those are
I like vinyl.
fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean I have a lot of Bose, but I'm saying even technology's changed and you can model and fractal stuff, whatever. I'm saying about like the old Bose my wife got from college. I mean, it still sound fantastic. I just hooked an old record
Totally.
player to it, and it's just fantastic, because I love vinyl. And I think most vinyl, there's very few bands I'm very picky over the 90s for groups. It's not the same anymore. They're not produced, they're not mixed for vinyl anymore. It's a different world, you know?
Right. And mixing for vinyl is an art into itself.
Oh yeah.
Mixing and
Oh,
mastering for absolutely. I mean, that's why we left off On So Long off of Sacred, because we couldn't put on both On So Long and Stranger Things. They're the two longest songs. So that was a really, really hard call. We went with Stranger Things on the record because I can't remember exactly what our thinking was, but maybe it was a little bit shorter. So On So Long became the download tune, which I think is one of the strongest tunes, of that era that I've done. But it is what it is.
well, it's the thing is with that is like when you talk about like breaking down and mix the sounds, like you can do with newer music, you can't go into your stereo and do like the rock and roll happy face when you do that little do 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 to get the
Right.
primo sound. You can't do that with music nowadays. It's like flat line. It's just
That's right.
compressed, and it's just you can really do stuff with good analog mixes at home.
Yeah.
You can
I'm
almost do your own
still yeah.
mixes.
I mean, I still struggle with how to send people files, like whether the Apple compress seems to work when I'm just like throwing around GarageBand files. Hey, Cheryl, is that bowl around? Time for a little
The
toke.
It threw me out there for a minute. I'm gonna say, tell you, so one of the things like I love, so like I like diversity with music and artists. And usually I'm pretty dedicated to like who I like the artists and follow them. So one of my things about you that I love is because you've done so many different types. So there's like I said, a lot of flavors and stuff. One of the things I always wish it had happened is I wished, and maybe you can tell me, had you ever done anything? There's two things I'd like to see with Tony Iommi. Any other thing? I'd love to see you guys do something. I mean, it's probably too late now. Is there any?
Well, the bullring Brummies thing. Okay, on the first
Right.
Columbia, right? I did. The reason I was even on there in the first place is because of the record company chief wouldn't allow Iommi to be on there, but he had already recorded his tracks, and so my deal with that is I followed his tracks and then played to him, and but that was a record company cheese back in the
I know,
day.
but you know what I'm saying? He has a million tracks put aside, old school tracks recorded somewhere.
Oh yeah,
I'd love to see you get your hands with him on it and do some older
you know,
style. That would be
I would love to do something like that. If something like that would come along, I mean, it'd be cool. I mean, I got to tell you, and I'm going to be honest. that, I think that, well, Geezer wrote all the lyrics to Sabbath. We know
Yes, it did.
that.
Right. That's
You
where you
know,
come in. You can write the lyrics with Tony. That's the whole point.
right, right. Well, Tony had his lyricist and his best friend just died. If you ever saw Sabbath, if you ever went to see Sabbath at a stadium, you
Mhm.
happen to have the shitty seats in the world, where where you're sitting exactly side stage to them, exactly, which
Yeah.
you would have seen Jeff Nicholson behind the curtain, sitting in the chair. He's got his keyboard, he's got his mic, and he's got his guitar. He's the guy that behind the curtain, he would sing with Ozzy the entire show. He would sing with Ozzy, and if Ozzy's voice was bad, then the sound engineer would bring Nicholson in and out because he had Ozzy's voice down. He played the rhythm guitar live on Dirty Women, et cetera, et cetera.
That's such a great
So
riff. That
he
is
was
an
in that
underrated
band
riff.
Quartz. He was in that band Quartz. Now Quartz is really produced by Iommi, and he was Iommi's best friend. He talks about him in Iommi in his book. And the Lita Ford, reached the impasse with Iommi because him and Nicholson would be all coked up and lock themselves in the apartment. She couldn't get in with the groceries, right? Okay, thank you. But Nicholson was his buddy, but the Quartz is really important because Quartz produced. They did a couple records, but Quartz did a couple songs, man. There's a song by Quartz called Mainline Riders,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a song by Quartz called Circle. Those are very, very influential in my musical history as far as growing up. And I didn't know it that he was the Iommi's or Sabbath's secret behind the curtain player. I didn't know that.
It was the secret sauce. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah,
He
it's
didn't want anybody to know that either. He kept that under wraps. If he came outside stage or out to the venue for a cigarette, somebody goes, Jeff, he'd be like, shh,
really. They've
Yeah.
always had secret singers behind Ozzy, I guess, because didn't Mason or no, there's a couple guys who used to sing behind Ozzy later on too. There's always been guys in the background there behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz stuff going on vocally.
I mean, that's the
historically.
truth. That's the truth.
No.
I mean, look, I think it's kind of cheesy. I mean, I saw Sabbath in '72. So that's pretty much why I am the way I am,
You
And
saw him
nothing-
primo. I mean, I saw him later on. I mean, we're not that big a difference. I'm 51. You're like 59 or something.
I'm 61.
Okay, so you got a compliment. You got a compliment. You're not a day over 59 in my eyes. Well, no, not a day over.
Oh, dude, I feel like I'm 61 going on 30.
Dude, after listening to your the last Obsessed album, you're 33, man. That's the power. I couldn't get the energy for that album.
33.
With you, with the art, what is going on, man? You got some crazy art going on. I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've been doing art just like, I just naturally started like to draw, even though I can't really draw. I mean, my proportions are out sometimes, and sometimes it's kind of reckless, but I think that somebody told me this recently. It really made me think. She said, you have an eccentric brain. And, I never really looked at it like that before. But then I even had to look up, I know what eccentric means in terms of how you say it, but I really had to look up the definition. Because, I guess she's right. I mean, it was like, I just see things differently. And I see weird things in the nature of my, I've always had a good imagination, or a rich imagination.
Good.
And I never let anything or anybody tell me any different.
Well, I think part of it is you're eclectic, and I think when you're saying you think of the hope music instead of doom, well, that rings out true. And I think that maybe one thing people don't get with doom music or with heavier music is it allows you to feel these emotions, and then it's like medicine. It kind of it
is like
takes it out of you. It lets you to understand things about yourself, and it's different for everybody, but it doesn't actually make you sad. It makes you work on things and feel certain emotions that maybe you aren't tapping into on your own, but the notes or maybe the frequencies or the words or whatever allows you to find that journey.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure what it is, but I can tell you straight up that music fiction is so important in my mood. Like, to be honest with you, I got to tell you, when I feel like ultra down these days, within like, I'd say the last half a year or so, man, I put on like a long playlist of some 70s funk, like some hard funk, and get with it from like, perspective of like, everybody from Bootsy to Grand Central Station, and Sly and all that kind of shit. I just kind of feel that kind of music uplifts me, in a way. I'm sure that like putting on a good fucking Slayer record or something like that uplifts a lot of people too, and I dig that. I mean, bluegrass music is like faster than thrash if you think about it. A lot of times I listen to bluegrass music, I'm going, man, that shit is peppy. That motherfucker's I mean, he's playing.
Those banjo players are insane.
Huh?
Those picking banjo players are insane.
It's insane.
They are faster than probably some shredders. I'm gonna tell you.
We're making a documentary about my career. You know, my lady, she's a film person. We watched the winter thing. You know, I wanted her to see it. And watching it again, man, it was really heartwarming, man. It's amazing how, you know, that was all about friendship, in my opinion, really. You know?
Well, isn't that the core of that's a story? You need to do documentary. Well, we should actually talk about your documentary because that's really the treatment of a movie or any kind of. You need to have a story where it's like a challenge or a battle or a point to where you're going with it. You need to go.
You're right.
You need a journey, and it's almost like a long song. It's like a visual song.
Yeah, you're right.
How it feels good when you watch a good documentary. You're like, that was good. I feel like I walked away with something. If you watch it, it's a meandering hunk of something in time. You're like, yeah, it was interesting, but it's not what I couldn't bite into it.
Right.
Let's talk about yours. What's going on with that? I've been seeing the little clips and
what we're talking about right now is how we're seeing it. I mean, we're realizing that you really need kind of like along with just my life story, which is, you know, can be a little chaotic. It really depends on how we cut it. But we're doing like what it is. We're doing interviews. I did a journey from where I live now in upstate New York, all the way across to Texas, road trip in a van with a trailer to grab my motorcycle, which was being. I had some fabrications done and some adornments done and some mechanical stuff done by a friend of mine in Austin, Texas. And I love Texas. I was raised, you know, I did some time there in my youth. Let's put it that way. I just like it, not for its politics, it's for the land itself. And so we went out there and did that. And along the way, we decided we're going to interview. We're kind of building the theme as we go. We decided we're going to interview a lot of people. We got Bauer from Down.
Yep.
Bauer. We got Dixie Dave and Shep from Weed Eater. We got Bobby from Pentagram. In the works, still a lot of other people too. My friend Matt Jackson, who, you know, is pretty big in the motorcycle scene down there, and you know, that kind of thing.
It's awesome.
So
you can't get enough.
Weaving that into a story, like we have sort of like a story because there's a lot of exciting stuff, and a lot of my stories, I think people will get into, but people always tell me, "Oh, you gotta write a book." So that's coming. But the thing about it is we want to, you know, to make a good movie. That is a super challenge. Man.
It is. You need an arc, and I think first off, you can't get enough interview footage. You can never have too much footage.
Right.
You just but you do have a good personal story along with the music because of the challenges of the bands. You have success and failure and comeback. Everyone loves a good comeback. Everyone loves a Rocky story if you're talking about like what an audience views. And then there's different types of niches, but your battles, you know, was homelessness or your amputation, like that's some pretty rock bottom stuff going on there, man. And now today we're talking, you know, you're a dad and your kids are successful and you're at a point now where your career where you can do all these different pieces of work, you know, that's a success story. And there's a journey in there.
I have to feel blessed every day. I have to feel lucky, and I feel blessed, you know, however you want to consider your traditional God or Great Spirit. I really feel blessed. And you know, my goal always from the very start has been to share that. You know, my philosophy from the start never wavered is that I was born with a gift. And I believe that gift is not only do I need to carry the torch for humanity, but that gift is something that I will use to bring happiness to other people and myself too. And a lot of times, you know, sometimes I leave myself in the later part of the equation because giving and stuff like that is way more important to me, man. You know,
it is, but you know what I'm saying? Like with the documentary, like it's also good to see a relatability. Like you have a musical talent, but you've also fallen on personal issues, and we all do.
Right.
But to show, like, you know, for another person to go, look, he's got this talent, but he also fails. He's human, and he struggles the same, and he can pick himself up. That's just your talent is what your career and your job is.
And to see like an addiction go to recovery or whatever it might be, that makes for a great movie.
It does.
Absolutely.
And you'll have a little intermission.
Then you walk away with something like, okay, this motherfucker was changed. Yeah, and that's how I felt with the winter thing. I think
It
it's
is.
amazing.
That's good. I mean, even it's not just because I know you had like a little bump in the road there too, like a 7 year bump in the road. So you can, it
Yeah,
shows it's a flow. You're a human being. You're a living and breathing, person. That's important because everybody challenges all the time, and this world's hard.
yeah, 7 years, like in dog years.
That's what you call it. You call it a bender. It's like it's like a life for somebody 7 years. I love the phrasing of that. I was like, oh my god, it's awesome. That's a lyricist for you right there.
7 year better.
Yeah,
Yeah, I tried to have a pedal. I
that's a
wanted to have a
statement.
pedal.
I read that. I was like, that's a statement by a lyricist. A 7 year bender.
Yeah,
That should be your title of your book.
good
A
idea.
7 year bender. That's
Might have
great.
to put it. Might have to put another decimal in front of that seven. Dog years.
You're awesome. So I want to before we wrap this up, so people can go to your
It's Wino dash R.
yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry. I have Crowley here. I actually wrote a note of that because I wanted to say it properly, and
Yeah.
I write like a doctor, just not smart like one.
I can send you. I can also send you the links.
Please do.
Where you can see my NFTs and all that stuff too.
Yeah,
Right
oh
now,
yes,
like,
please. Yeah, talk about that. We didn't cover that. Yeah.
I'm just now getting into that, but man, I'm doing some really. I'm realizing I had an epiphany about the digital realm and crypto and all that. And so, like, I had a friend of mine who sort of guided me into that because a lot of people tell me you should use your art to make an NFT. And as you know, it's a little bit tricky to wrap your head around at first.
I'm
So,
just learning. I just talked to Scott Page, and he's doing those from a sex artist for like Pink Floyd and everything. He's just give me like an hour-long talk on it to learn. I've got so much to look up now about that because I talk.
right.
It's some deep stuff, man.
All this is you take a digital image, okay, like my artwork, for example. If I take a digital picture of it, okay, and then I think it's fantastic, maybe I manipulate a little bit digitally, and then I send it to be minted. Once it's minted, it's assigned like a 2,000 letter code, which makes it an original. Now, if I burn the fucking painting it came from, then I don't have to do that. But I mean, technically, even if it flashes up on the screen, somebody takes a picture of it, it's still not minted by this specialty place. That's what it is. It gets appraised.
Right, and I get that, but to me, it's more like I'm more like on the way back cerebral thing. I'm like, all right, but there's only a value to it if somebody thinks there's a value to it, like it's art, or like if you still have the canvas, like how's it going to transition to people like me who likes to hold vinyl? When to me, I'm like digital. I've got everything digital. I could care less.
Right.
So I'm not just going to hit that where I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
It will never ever be out of the digital realm, except for even if somebody takes a picture of it or tries to duplicate it, it will never have the authentication that you had from the minter or the appraiser. That's all it is. That's what it is. You pay a fee to have this digital piece, minted, they call it. Once it's minted, it's assigned a number. So all the things about that piece, the clarity and all that type of shit is in that one single piece as it's minted, that digital piece, okay? Any other variation of that, whether it be a photograph, even a higher quality photograph, or whatever it might be, is
I get that, but do you remember what happened?
it's hard to wrap your head around. I'm not really sure I understand it, but I just know that, in my opinion, like in some situations, I think it's a good idea sometimes to get in so you can eat your way out.
I was told this. I was told, like I said, and there's, Scott Page said, it's time to get into it now. There's a thing, and I've got a lot to look into it. But here's the thing: is like with certain copies of things, are we going to be like people don't always care if they get the original. I mean, look what happened. I was going to say with Napster or with copies of files. I mean, at one point,
this blockchain thing, there's ways that you can like isolate people out of it, and that's like how when streaming started happening,
right. So like what value do people have on the original things? Is what I'm saying. Like, do people really care that much?
Well, I just met a dude recently. Who bought some art, and he wants to buy pedals from me. Okay, only if they've been used at certain shows. Okay, so that is technically almost the same thing.
It is.
And think about it. So it's like, look, I would never ever exploit a fan or somebody or anything like that. But if somebody wants to buy a fucking pristine digital copy of one of my artworks, I'm not going to kick and scream.
Well, okay, let's just say exploit. What do you think exploiting is? Somebody wants to pay a certain
value. Exploiting would be misrepresenting yourself or your art or your product.
if you want to sell
And
your value,
because
your
of the fact
art.
that maybe the person is so zealous that he could be swayed. I mean, I don't think play that game. You know what I mean?
But I
I
mean,
mean,
there
I
is a certain
respect.
value for things. Like that's the hard part because like I'm like I could look at some art. Like I
It's
like your
hard to
art.
wrap your head around. I know it's hard to wrap your head around. Man, I didn't even know. I didn't even know. I couldn't even link it anywhere to go to the website. I had to rely on my partner, who
No,
is,
no, no. I'm agreeing with you. I'm like I'm so confused myself because I can't even judge art. Like I'm like I like your art, but I can look at someone else's art. I'm like I don't know what the value of art is to me
the
because
value of
it's
art
very
is to
opinion. It's
yourself.
opinion.
The value of art is to yourself. Okay, check it out. This is our new saying. It was actually coined by a friend of mine uh, named Carlito, and he says, "Create or die." That doesn't just mean paint. I mean, you play guitar. We play
Right.
guitar. We create. Even if you're cooking. Create or die.
Well,
I
that's
like
the
that.
thing. It's the intrinsic value of art or creativity of whether it become a digital copy or a music or a file. Like to me, like I see the value in it 100%, but I don't know how to value it. Like I see, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. It's
Like the
very,
monetary value of something because I see the value of it, but I don't know how you can say one artist is better. Like you can say technically somebody can draw, like an artist can draw a face and look like a real lion, and some
it's
people
so
can just be
weird
so
because
creative.
yeah, it's so weird. My partner's father asked today, how do you price the art?
You get somebody that's a Libra to do it. That's not a Libra, rather, to do it because a
They
Libra will
get
thinking
somebody
about it all day.
to bounce that off of. Like, I have somebody, that bounces off us because we're like, okay, yes, right, right.
That would make me crazy. I could not. I can't. I don't
But
do
that's not
money.
my job. So, but my job is to like okay it.
Yeah,
So I okay it from my standpoint of like what's fair, what's not fair, how I'm feeling. And I gotta tell you, man, I'm always on the side of the underdog.
but it's
Always.
hard because you deserve to get paid for what you do, and there's ridiculous. Some things you're like, I think when you start doing people like art, like $10,000, I'm like, I don't know, man.
But you can't lose sight of your core ideals, man. If you lose sight of your core ideals,
Right.
then you lose sight of your core ideals. And to me, when that happens to an artist, if you can really see that,
Agreed, and I think you stay where you are, and I mean, and that's like, who's to say what the value is for somebody that, like the hardest jobs are people that think make more money. The people that work at fast food restaurants, they got the hardest jobs with maniacs
right,
yelling at them all the time. You know what I'm saying?
deal with
They don't
all
have
kinds of
value.
people. When you're the stock boy,
Yeah.
like I found that, what I mean. I don't want to be cashier. I want to be back in the stock room,
Yep.
just to be in the shoes. You know what I mean?
That was punishment back in high school. Remember, I did jobs. You like, we went to the catcher. Says, no, I want to unload the trucks today, man. I don't want to be in the front with people.
I mean, I've been in both those situations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. This has
But
been
man,
great.
I love you, man. I think it's interview's great, man. I'm having a great time.
This is
I think
no,
the fact that we can talk about heavy stuff, edgy stuff, and not and have it not explode, I think is groovy.
well, there isn't, and I think that's important. And I think one of the things when I started the show, because it's not about probably the time I make money, it's about artists are real people, and I wanted to help during this time talk to them in a way because I've had some in the music industry too, but it's not about that. It's about to see that the real people and the cost that they pay. Like people don't realize the challenge and what artists do, and artists aren't crying about it. But it's important that people are aware that artists are real people, but they also have to perform. They also have to look a certain way. They have all these rules, and everything's in a microscope. Or you're like, you're crazy. You're a psycho because you have an opinion. Just because I don't agree with your opinion, you're not a psycho. You're reading.
I mean,
You're thinking. You're talking. How are you a psycho? You're not. You know.
I've been surprised by my friends. I've been totally surprised by my friends, hardcore friends of mine, who say out of the blue, like, "No, man, I admire you because you make music from you. I mean, you make money from your art,
Yeah.
And that always takes me by surprise because I never wanted to really look at my musical abilities or my performances as work. But man, I feel like I say, I feel blessed. I feel lucky. I've been able to do what I do, and my goal still is really to just bring it to the people. I want to make people happy. I want to inspire people, and I want to hopefully maybe I can give somebody some advice. Maybe somebody can give me some advice. Whatever it is, it's all about for me. It's all about positive shit.
So well, you have so many examples of you keep writing music. You have a lifetime of stories in your music. I'd like to see you actually go back and do an acoustic album now of a mixture of stuff you've done from all the years of different bands.
Great idea. You've had a couple good ideas, and you know what? I hear you. I do
I just
hear you.
think you've got so much different stuff going on, because with your sound, and I love you have a sound, and I just think I'd love to see some of those songs revisited, just a little bit
I'll tell
different.
you what. When I'm getting ready, when I put these things together, I'm gonna send them to you. I'm gonna bounce it off you
Yeah.
because I consider you to be a pretty good bellwether of stuff.
To see
So
your wino-art.com, right?
yep,
You want
that's
it, you
right.
got a new Obsessed album you're working on next month?
Well, we're starting the track in February. Yep,
Okay.
and it's going to be called Design to Divide, and it's going to be on Ripple.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great. When it hits vinyl, I don't know because of whatever the shortage, whatever. But
Vinyl's hard right now. The vinyl industry, as well as it was just picking up, COVID separated it and closed a lot of stuff down. So
I'm
everyone's like,
telling you, Todd is my hero. Though he really is. He told me, Forever Gone was supposed to come out right when all that shit hit, and he called me up. And he said, "We're going forward with the release date.
good.
Nothing's changed." I mean, that's
You
fantastic.
can get a vinyl though out before 224 at this point. Bless your
Right,
heart.
right.
The way
Well,
the
I doubt
backlog
that's
is.
going to happen. Well, before 224.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm just joking with you, but there is a
No,
backlog, I heard.
you're right. That's what I've been told. But well, at least CDs or the recording will be available
Right.
before then. Goddamn, better be.
It, so this is
Yeah,
good.
it's
And then
going to be the revolution, man.
the revolution, it'll be recorded in analog. In analog, though. We'll do it in analog this time.
Right.
And then, of course, there's always going to be solo stuff from you coming out. And we'll be back. We'll do more stuff. This has been a blast, man. All right?
Man, it's been a gas, brother.
All right, brother. I want to thank you, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, take it easy.